talking while we get started. My name is Ken Course, for those of you who first got to know me yesterday, showing up here, doing another little mini Find Your Momentum, answering some questions, and I'm giving it just a minute. I know I had a few of you jump on live yesterday, for those of you who missed out, so I've shared this on my personal profile again. Actually use the time wisely during my initial little theme that I have that I play. So I used that time to be able to share this with my personal peeps. And had a lot of really good feedback yesterday, and I'm really appreciative of those of you that asked some more questions, that shared this with your friends. In particular, thank you very much for doing that and for taking the time to share this with people. My big goal is really to help you guys get some value out of your marketing, get some value out of what you're doing. Again, for those of you who want to really take this to the next level, I'll be appearing October 19th at the Lead Gen event at the Concourse LAX in Los Angeles, speaking there, and obviously we'll continue to do this because I'm a big fan of show you, not tell you what I can do. So you'll get a lot more out of what you learn from me at other events and other speaking times and that type of thing. But throughout this, I want to really give you some value, show you what you can do, and give you some tips you can use right now to improve your marketing. And for those of you who didn't listen to Find Your Momentum Radio when it was back on, this is a lot like that, where a topic came up or a question came up or a guest would come on that we would be discussing different issues that as it related to marketing, as it related to copy, all of those different things. So again, as you can see, stalling for a moment, letting people jump on because I want to be able to dig in deep. And for those of you that are out there, ask questions during this. I'll either cover it in a future video or I'll cover it here while we have some time. And again, I had some questions yesterday, one that I want to touch on. I believe it was Dinah that asked me, but there were a couple people that asked me, what's the software that I'm using that gets the little titles? And I mean, especially this one today where I had the little title that pops up and it does the little cool animation in and out. So this is a piece of software that's called Wirecast. I used to use it back in the day for podcasting. Actually, a very similar software, not this exact same software. And Wirecast gives you the ability to broadcast to Facebook Live and kind of treat it like a little bit of a mini TV show. You can bring in other people to do what you're doing, broadcast right to the service. Then you just kind of have to watch the chat room. Yesterday, my experience with the chat or the comments or whatever you want to call it on the video is it's not super friendly, so I have to keep refreshing the page a lot to see who's on or who's watching or what they're doing. And so on a Friday afternoon here Mountain Time, it's just a little bit before 3:30. I know some of you are already off for the weekend, or some of you are enjoying a weekend day. My friends in Australia or all over the world are enjoying that weekend. So what I wanted to talk about today was email marketing. And really yesterday we did spend a lot of time talking about copy, but I didn't really give you a particular focus. I didn't say, all right, here's a little system that you can use when you're writing copy or when you're writing an email. And so I just kind of typed up a few little notes here that I want to share. And actually here in this office, I don't have this on my wall. I have lots of goofy stuff I care about in my Red Wing stuff and my digital marketer certificates on the wall. But in most offices that I'm in where I'm writing copy, and I really need to get it up here, put it up here, is I have this list of questions that I ask myself whenever I want to send an email. And I'll cover those to some degree today. I'll teach them a little bit when we're talking about email. But I want to give you an idea of what those questions are. So first of all, let's talk about the kind of performance points or the big points of what makes a great email. And really, of all the things that I've done over the years, copywriting and email are really the ones I'm the most passionate about. And people would say, well, where did you learn this? I mean, I learned a lot of it through experience. I learned a lot of it through training. I had great trainers over the years. But copywriting for me actually started in fiction writing. I've been a fiction writer for as long as I can remember. From the time I was 3 or 4 years old, I was always writing stories, acting, sharing those types of things. And so for me, what I learned about great writing back then is what I apply to copywriting now, in that you want your audience or your reader or whomever to be invested in the email that you're sending. And so these rules really aren't just rules that apply to copywriting or email marketing or any kind of marketing. They're rules that just apply to writing in general. And what makes a great story, like one of my favorite things right now, Game of Thrones, I know a lot of you talk about it, but the reason why the first 3 books in the series are so good is that you as the reader become so invested in what's happening that you almost have to know what's going on. You almost have to know how it ends or what happens in the story. You get so invested in what's happening. Now, your emails, I know a lot of people, I mentioned this specific quote yesterday, and it's very true, that for the most part, people are not sitting around waiting for your email to come into their inbox. inbox. It's just not the way that people behave. It's a nice idea, and I would love to think that people are doing that. And when you get really good at marketing, those are the types of things that start to happen. Like when I have great emails come in from the great marketers that I follow, like Ryan Dice or Ryan Levesque or John Lee Dumas or any of those people that write great emails, I sit and I watch and I wait, and those come in, and I think about what techniques are they using, or how are they crafting the words, or are they being particular about the different things that they're choosing. And in this case, just like a fiction author, or just like I was throughout my teenage years, and really even up till now, I just shift mediums all the time, is it has to grab the reader in some way. So what makes a great email? Let's go through a little checklist here. What makes something that will make your readers care about what you're doing or want to read it? Well, first and foremost, there's a reason for that email to be sent out. So in and of itself, most people use emails or phone calls or even conversations as a mechanism to get to the next place. Most people don't put a whole lot of thought into the first email itself. So if I'm trying to get you to buy something, drive you to a landing page, execute a campaign, whatever it is I'm trying to do, for the most part, the email that I'm sending, and this is true in a lot of cases, a lot of people that don't write great copy, this is very true. What ends up happening is they kind of just look past the email to the end goal. And the end goal, we all know, is something that we want as business owners. So I want you to buy something. I want you to read something else. I want you to watch a video. I want you to do this other thing. But we kind of lose sight of, why are we sending the initial email itself, which is the critical factor in whether or not they'll ever do anything else for us. You know, this is true of ad copy too when you're writing, and it's just, what is the thing that makes the ad copy, the email copy, in and of itself have a reason for being? And if you're not putting that level of thought into your email, then you need to step back and think about it. Because for most people who are doing that, writing it from a place of being passive, or writing it from a place of wanting to get somebody to the next level, or even worse, and this is a golden rule I tell people, if you're bored writing your emails and thinking, ugh, this is drudgery, then imagine that the person on the other side that's reading it, your target audience, is 10 times more bored than you are. So step back from it. Think about the technique of what you're doing, and think about the reason in and of itself that you're sending out that email. So why does it exist? Why does that email need to exist? And yes, it's important that there's a step 2, but imagine that if they never took the step 2, is there something that they could take away from that email in and of itself that would matter to them? An answer to a question, a curiosity, a tip, go back to our fiction example, our Game of Thrones example, a character that they want to know more about, a business that they want to know more about. The other thing is this doesn't always have to be a point of value. It doesn't have to be you always teaching. And this is the thing that I run into with a lot of entrepreneurs, is because we're so used to giving value to our people and giving value to our customers and thinking about things within this big context of a value window, a lot of people associate value with teaching. And let me tell you, people that are invested in Game of Thrones, which is one of the most popular television shows, it's one of the most popular book series in the last 10 years, are invested for reasons that have nothing to do with education. So if you think about the people in your life and the things that they're interested in and the things that they do with their time and all of that stuff, then what you start to realize is value in the form of education is not the only way to get someone's attention. Stories can do great service to you. Great questions can do great service to you. Tools that you can use that solve problems that you have. Some common sense things. Or sometimes just connection. A lot of the best copywriters I know how to make a reader feel very connected just from that initial email. They feel like it's a legit conversation. They feel like I care about you in the relationship and you care about me in the relationship. And people will say, is that possible to do in an email? Absolutely, it's possible to do in an email. If you're not looking past it, just trying to take somebody to the second level. So let's talk about the tools that fit within an email. So for those of you just jumping on, I revealed the number one thing in a great email is there's a reason for that email to exist in and of itself that is related to not just a second step, but just to that email. So if you can't think of the reason, why am I sending this email other than step 2, or like the South Park model of step 1, here's write an email, step 2, question, step 3, profit, then I really want you to get really particular and think that way. All right, so now that you got that, let's talk about the tools of an email. So obviously, the most important thing in any form of writing these days, and this is not always this has not always been the case. I'd say it's been the case for a long time, but really more so now than ever. The subject line is the most important piece of that email. So the subject line is really declaring why that email exists, or it's giving me a hook, a teaser, a question, some sort of information that's directly related to that email's reason for being. So great subject lines, for the most part, are something that is really going to help you understand why I should read more. It's just like great headlines. And I'll see people all the time complain about things like BuzzFeed, or they'll complain about things like Upworthy. Why do these headlines show up all the time? The top 10 reasons you need to know about blank, the top 30 reasons you need to question this. And it's because they work. There's emotional value associated with those things. Curiosity is associated with those things. Entertainment is associated with those things. There's a relationship and a reason for that headline or for that thing to be called into being. So it's really important to think about that with your subject line. If your subject line is poor, there are people that write great content, and this is true of just marketing in general. Some of the best teachers and the best programs I've ever seen were so poorly marketed that the person that created them either went out of business or stopped marketing them altogether because they couldn't get someone there. In the case of your email, the subject line has to do that work for you. If it's something bland, something not interesting, something that's only related to you as the writer rather than to the reader, something that just doesn't land or doesn't connect, then you got a big problem. So your subject line is the most critical and important part of your email. It should take the most thought. And for those of you who don't know how to write great subject lines, go look it up. Google is your friend. Google great email subject lines or great email subject lines of 2016 and see what types of things come up for you. So then let's talk about the email itself. So the subject line, we're going to assume that you have a subject line. First of all, you got a reason for sending the email. Second of all, you got a subject line that connects someone to why they should read this thing in the first place. And let's just talk about some of the basic nuts and bolts of the email now as well. So first and foremost, the text has to be formatted well for mobile. Most people are going to be reading emails on their mobile. If you're doing any form of advertising at all, over 80%, normally closer to 90% of that traffic is going to be reading it on a mobile device. So here's your cell phone, your tablet, whatever it is. And so what are some bad things that happen when people are not thinking about mobile? Well, they write big giant paragraphs or big giant blocks of text. You've got to break up your blocks of text. You have to make it easy for someone who's looking at it on a little screen to just scroll right through, be able to slide down the page. You'll hear that rule from a lot of different marketers. They have to be able to move through it quickly. Another thing that's nuts and bolts that should be happening in the email that's really critical is when you want to create emphasis, you can use things like capital letters. You can use things like bold and italics. You can use things to shift it up so it doesn't just feel like drudgery when someone's scrolling through your email. Now, you don't want to get this to a point where it's almost clownish, where that's constantly what you're doing or it's a gimmick in what you're doing. But you want to have something in there that keeps the visual diverse so that they're not just looking at the same thing. Headlines can do that. Images in particular in emails can really do that and add to the meat of your email. Now, again, if you're thinking about mobile, you don't want massive, enormous images that are showing in there. But you really want to put some thought into the fact that most people are going to be reading this on a smaller screen. And you used to see, if I would have taught this course 5 to 10 years ago, a lot of people were doing, even at that time, they were doing what was called half line format, where they would write half the sentence and just give it a hard return and move it to the next level. So you want to think about mobile, and so that means no big chunks of text, no boring visuals. You want to make gratuitous use of headlines, bolds, italics, underlines, caps, images. Don't hesitate to use those things in there. So we've talked about 3 reasons I want to review for those of you who are just jumping on. I know some people jump on, some jump off. So we're talking about what makes a great email. There's a reason for that email in and of itself to exist. That was number 1. Number 2, there's a subject line that communicates that value. And the subject line should get more thought than almost anything else that you're putting into that email. Yes, the body copy is important, but for the most part, you want to make sure that that subject line is grabbing attention. Then from there, you want to make sure that the text is formatted well, especially for mobile. No big chunks of text, no bolds, no gratuitous use of bolds, italics, underlines, images, all that good stuff. And finally, let's talk about the last thing that makes a great email. there's a call to action that I want to take. And you'll hear from all marketing, all sales training, they'll talk about all the time how great calls to action are really important, and they are. Now, here's the thing about calls to action in an email that are so important. First of all, it has to be related to the purpose of sending the email in the first place. So you should be thinking about your email as step one, and the call to action should be a logical step two, something that excites them, something that entices them, something that, again, isn't just boring. Now, a lot of things, again, come down to when I'm talking to entrepreneurs, they're always thinking in this value conversation. It doesn't just have to be value. It could be something entertaining. It could be something useful. It could be a tooltip. It could be a video training. It could be something else that fits in there that's really specific to the email itself. But if you are not focused on putting that call to action and making it just as compelling as what you put in there, you've got big problems. Now, a lot of you are listening out there who've probably sent a few emails. A lot of you will go, oh, well, I think that my emails are already interesting, and I think my calls to action are really good, and I think my subject line is good, and I hear this all the time, but people just don't click on my emails for some reason, or people just aren't interested. So whenever people tell me that, I love to use a feedback test. I would take that email, take it exactly as it is, and share it with either previous customers, even family members if you've got to go there. I don't love using family members, but somebody that you know is just willing to give you an honest opinion. And then you ask for honest feedback. You say, is this interesting? What do you think of it? What would you do? Where would you click? How would you scroll through it? How would you look at this? And again, in that case, you want to be soliciting some honest feedback. You want to be thinking to say, all right, well, is this really interesting? Because 9 times out of 10, the big question, and I brought this question up yesterday, that comes up is, who cares? For the most part, your readers are thinking that question all the time. They're not ever going to tell you that outright. Most people are not going to be outright disrespectful to you. Now, me as a consultant and who looks at these things, even in my own writing, a lot of the time, I'll be asking myself the question, who really cares about this? Or is this really that interesting? Or is this really what I think it is? Because for the most part, a lot of the times, it isn't. It is disconnected from my audience. It's disconnected from my reader. And I like to take it back to that fiction story example. If I write a story that has boring characters, if it's flat, if nothing happens chapter after chapter, or the development's too slow, or even worse, the development is too fast and too confusing, then people aren't going to want to read that book. When you look at Game of Thrones, as you go through the series, those books get thicker and thicker and thicker as you go through. The storyline gets meatier and meatier and meatier. Now, of course, we'll still have to see if he can deliver on the end of that thing. But at the same time, the reason it's become as popular as it is at this point is because the story has so many relatable elements to it, so many relatable characters, so many different things that are happening within that context that it's really critical. So again, let's do a quick review before I wrap this session up for today. Thank you for those of you that watch this during the replay, or thank you for those of you that have some feedback. And I urge you, ask some questions. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you want to hear about on these sessions. I love to do them. My favorite thing to do is coaching and training. So again, let me know. Give me some examples if you have something like what Taya did yesterday. But let me go through those reasons real quick. So what makes a great email? First of all, there's a reason for that email to exist in and of itself. It's not just a step to another thing. Number 2, there's a well-invested subject line that grabs attention based on that reason for that email's existence. So it's something that's going to grab some attention, and it doesn't just have to be educational. Thirdly, the text is formatted well for mobile. So no big blocks of text. Use bold, use italic, use underline, use headlines, use images, use all the stuff that breaks up the monotony of the image that you'll see in the email. And then finally, a compelling, related call to action to what's happening in there. So again, that doesn't just have to be educational. It could be entertaining. It could be curiosity seeking. It could be anything in there that gets me wanting to know more. And again, there are lots of great email templates you can look up, great headlines, great swipe files you can find. All you got to do is Google some of that. And again, share what you find with me. Let me know what you find on Google. Share it with the Explore Momentum peeps here on the page. Let me know what subject lines you're writing or what type of emails you're putting together. And again, I love to give that type of feedback and let you know what I would do to improve that going forward. So again, my name is Ken Kors. I am the founder of Explore Momentum. Very grateful to be able to spend time with you, help you out in your marketing. And my hope is in the long term that I can help you get more customers, generate more leads. And for those of you that have not heard or didn't hear at the beginning, Again, I want you to be able to register for the Lead Gen event October 19th at the Concourse LAX. I'll be appearing there to talk about nurture campaigns, also known as upsell campaigns. So probably the most important thing that you can do in your marketing, because 75% of your overall revenue is going to come from your follow-up campaigns. They're not going to come from the first swipes. And for the most part, what you want to do over time, and I talk about this in a video that I shared the other day, what you want to do most over time is increase the value of the leads that you're already generating rather than to just try to find new people. So again, share your feedback in the comments on my personal profile on the Explore Momentum page. If you don't follow Explore Momentum and you came upon this on my personal profile, Explore Momentum on Facebook, exploremomentum.com. Great to spend time with you today, and we'll see you coming up soon on a future broadcast. Have a good one.